Okay guys, what is up and welcome back to another video. First things first, I just want to thank you guys oh so much for having me hit 1,700 subscribers. If you've been on the channel for a while, you know I've hit this milestone before, but we did have a decline. I'm not going to talk about that. I just want to focus on the positives. You guys are amazing, and I wouldn't have anything without you guys. Honest to God, when it comes to making videos, like, it's the only reason that I enjoy making it is to see community feedback, to see how I can improve my editing style, and just to be a better person and content creator in general, and I get better video games if it helps. But in doing so, this normally takes a lot of editing, and there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that you guys do not get to see. And I'm going to show you what editor I use because I have been wanting to help other creators, and in doing so, because you guys help me so much, I want to help maybe you guys get started into your editing career, because a lot of people just don't know how to edit, what softwares to use, and there's a lot of hardware involved. However, software is a big portion of this as well. There will also be a link in the description of how to set this up and the actual download page itself, so if you're going to go check those out and do this for yourself, feel free. Okay, so first thing you want to do is obviously open HitFilm Express, because that is what we are going to be using today. You're going to go over to the new file, click on the new file, and this is actually kind of important. We're going to not start composing, we're going to start editing. Composing is for something different, but if you're editing a video like I'm going to be doing, start editing. And from here you can either import from a certain file location, so for here it just opens up all of my like thumbnails and all this other jazz, or you can actually take a file from your desktop. Let's say I'll drag in something like this, and boom. And holy shit, we have a completely edited video with everything that's all good. And if you like completely scroll out, it's like, holy shit, we have all the edits. Look at all those cuts. Amazing. Really though, I swear to God, that's what people think happens. It's people don't, you will never respect the art of editing until you've done it yourself. And I'm not just going, oh, I put in so much hard work. No one cares about that. I'm just saying, even as a person, like before I started doing this, I had no appreciation or knowledge of how to do this preemptively before I started. It's just something that takes time. Anyway, back to a more serious note, you can just drag and drop them into here, and this is just a BO4 gameplay that I had, and from here you can just drag her into video 1. Now I don't have, just click yes for that. I don't have it. You can make it so you can check mark that so it goes away every single time and it just remembers that you clicked yes. I just haven't done it yet because I'm stupid. But I will be putting you through the basics of how to use HitFilm. I've seen a lot of HitFilm tutorials. This one is my everyday kind of usage tutorial, what each kind of video edit will do, and I'll give you an example of an edit before I end up actually doing it so that you guys know what the end result's gonna be. So we have our basic video here. You can add on top layers and things like that. So if I wanted to add like a face cam, or if a picture, for example, I can add in this little cute axe-wielding anime girl, and then we can just throw that on top, and then we can have her there, and then she'll just be there for the duration of how long that I've decided to put her in here for, and we can just drag it along the top track, and it makes a new video track every single time you drag something in. And I don't know, just drag a trash can in, and you can you can just put photos and move them, and this is to turn it. This is a grab it with your mouse and you can turn it, and then if you hold shift on your keyboard and then drag with these blue corners, you can actually make it bigger and keep the photo in proportion. I'm going to assume that I'm not going to assume anything. I'm not going to assume you guys know the basics. I'm just going to assume that you guys know absolutely nothing. The two keybinds I like using the most when editing my videos, let's see, I like my cute little anime girl there, but the two best components that I like using when editing in terms of keybinds is C and V for HitFilm, at least. C being for cut, and it actually brings up a thing where I can just cut along where I want. The best way to do that is if there's a picture, for example, and you want to cut right before the picture, it'll actually make a red line lining up directly with where the picture starts and or where the picture ends, and then you can just cut that part out easily. And if you just want your little anime girl, then there you go. Or if you just want whatever, if you want another video or something along those lines, then there you go. Or you can just freehand cut, or the best way I recommend doing it if you're not cutting for a photo or another file, I would recommend actually lining up where you want to cut with your actual timeline tool thing. This little white line here, lining it up with that so you know exactly where you're cutting. If you just control Z, it actually undoes everything that you previously just did, and you can take in and out things and undo cuts and etc., and that is very helpful. One thing I would say right off the bat before you do and go ahead with any of this, you gotta save your project. Just name it I'm gonna name this one test video. So let's say, for example, I don't want the first half of this video. Like I want to start my video here, for example. We're gonna cut it here, and then you can actually right click on your mouse, and then you can either hit the delete key on, not the backspace key, the actual delete key on your keyboard, or hit remove, which is normally what I do because it's more convenient for my hands to stay on C and V and near the control and shift key. So I just hit remove, and then you can make sure that you're not on the cut tool, otherwise you're just going to be cutting your things randomly. You press V, or if you want to actually go to the sidebar and see what I'm doing with C and V, C is bringing it to this tool here, and V is actually bringing it to this mouse tool here. And you can just grab it and drag, or if you want to bring it to the very beginning and there's other things here, let's say I bring this down one, and it's now in video 1, and I want to bring this file over here without actually dragging it, because you can just drag it over here, no big deal. But when the file's like, when it starts to become big and you're doing in close edits, and then you want to bring a thing really close, then it's way easier just to right click and do ripple delete gap, and it will delete this entire gap and actually bring it to the point of where your first clip is. The next thing I want to show you guys is actually pretty important as well. Putting face cam in isn't that hard, but I'll just do it anyway. So if I drag a picture of my face, this is going to be for a future video, and then I can just drag it over top and put it in video 2, and then it makes a new audio file as well. If you want to rename those, just go ahead and right click, and then there's the rename track, and I'll put it as like cam, or for like camcorder or whatever, just whatever you want to name it. Same thing with the video, it is just rename track, delete track, or insert track makes a new track. Even if there's nothing there, you can just have like a billion tracks, but I'd recommend actually naming them to keep track of what's what. So if you have a whole thing for memes, for sound and stuff, I normally have like a memes track, and if you have background music, I have a background music track, and then the audio 1 and audio 2 track. Normally is what I do personally. But let's say for the face cam, for example, you can hold the alt key and use your scroll wheel on your mouse to actually zoom in and out of the thing that you are editing. And most of the time I edit like this, so that I have a lot bigger field and see exactly what's on my screen, because if you move something out of the way, like I move both of these, then there's just going to be a black spot right here wherever these little pixels are. It's just going to be empty space. So if I do that exactly, I just Control Z to go back again. And if you want to go in a straight line forward or over more, you can actually do that with these red and green arrows up here, and it makes so it moves in a perfectly straight line one way or the next. But what I'm going to do here is what I taught you guys before, is just hold the shift key and go down to the point where you think it's probably the best size for a face cam, and just kind of put it in the corner here. And for the sake of the video, and because I don't want you guys knowing exactly what I was saying, I'm actually going to mute that tab. If you need to mute anything at one point in time, just hit these little sound icons, or if you want to only see one track, you can actually make it disappear and reappear. You can still edit whilst they're not there. However, I just wouldn't recommend it. Be wary that you can turn it on and off. Doesn't mean it's gone, it just means it's hidden from your field of view and will be there once you export it. As you can see here, this audio meter, whilst the audio is going, my best recommendation, as you can see here, when it hits its high peaks, especially if you're talking or something like that, you want the audio for your gameplay to be a bit lower, and you can do that by actually dragging this bar right here, and I'd recommend probably like a 12 or -16, -12 to -16 if you want a gameplay to be quieter than what you're doing. This goes for anything in general. It's really just a personal preference in this case, but for me, I would say the best is -12 to -6 is the best audio range, and you really don't want the audio to go louder than that unless you're literally trying to do unless you're trying to blow someone's ears out. Let's say, for example, I put, and if you have an issue where you're like, oh no, where did my visuals go? And I'm not gonna have that issue right now, but if I pull this up, and then maybe I say I put, oh, by the way, I'm getting all these things. I just have like a whole downloads section, and I just keep this at the side on my other monitor whilst I'm editing, so I have like memes and audio cues and things that I can just remind myself, hey, put this into the video. But let's say I put in my good man Jesus over here, and he's actually just a black screen. But normally, if for a file that doesn't have a background, you can either cut it out in Photoshop. This is not a very good example, but I've never used it before. But for this little anime girl, you would actually need, or the trash can that we had at the beginning, it's a PNG file, and it makes it so that there's no background. So if you want to know what that is, it's PNG. As you can see in our timeline now, there is no, like, where did our face cam go? So you can either scroll down with your scroll wheel, or if you feel more comfortable clicking on this little bar here with your mouse and dragging down. It's just because you have so many video files now, it doesn't have any space to put them in. So for video 4, it's saying, hey, look, we're too far up now, I need more space. So it just takes these and basically moves them downwards. So don't worry about that. Same with the audio, you can move that up and down. And there's a master audio as well if the entire video is just too loud or something like that, you want to quiet it down. If at one point in time you ever want to have your face cam, say you recorded face cam and your audio together, this goes for any audio in general. If you just have a clip of something that you only want the audio for, or a clip of something that you only want the visuals for, you can actually do something called unlinking the two files. So right now they're one singular coherent file, and if I go over, or if I actually press Control Shift Backspace, it does the exact same thing, but I like right clicking and then go unlink, and then you have to click off of them, and then you can click on whichever file you want to select, and it selects them individually now. So if I just want to delete the face cam, we can do so by hitting the delete key, or right clicking and then going up to delete or remove, I think it is, and then we just are left with the audio file from this face cam, or vice versa if we want to keep the face cam and leave the audio, which is maybe what I think I want to do. You remove that, and then look, we don't have our face cam audio anymore, and we can just unmute that and just approve it, and it doesn't play the audio. You can play around with this as you please. You can cut things separately, so if this line doesn't mean, whatever you're hovered over with your mouse is what it will cut. So if these things are linked together, it will cut both of them, but it won't cut your upper picture. So if you want to cut both of them, make sure that you're cutting them each individually, doing the double click. If there's a red line here on top of this, it means you can cut it, and you have not done so yet. In terms of like moving photos and things like that on screen, you want to actually go over to controls for that. Make sure you have the thing that you want selected. I'd recommend actually scrolling up to make sure you have it highlighted. When it is highlighted, that means in blue like that, it means it is selected. And if you want to make it do all the visual effects where you zoom in and things like that, you can actually go over to controls on the side panel here, where you were importing files. Go down to transform, and you can actually have an anchor point position, and as soon as you click these little blue dots or gray dots and turn them blue, that means that they are fully active. So as soon as I go from here to here, the anchor point will actually make sure it comes back to this area. But if I want to move it from here to here, see, that little line is indicating from when I started to where I dragged my timeline to. This picture will move from there to there. So if we actually play the clip right now, it's going to go and start from here and actually slowly make its way over to there, and vice versa. If I want to, in the middle of this, turn the photo upside down or something like that, and I want to do it all in one go, then it will slowly start moving towards its target and turning at the same time. You just have to have rotation on for that. Scaling is the exact same thing. If I wanted to start getting smaller within this time, I can make it smaller. As long as I have the scaling on, and then it will start as big as I wanted it to initially, and then as soon as I started to say, hey, start spiraling down, it will actually start doing so and make itself smaller. Same with position, you can move it in different directions. It doesn't have to just stay in one position per timeline, and you can just move it all over the place. Just like if you want to do like one movement for every second, that's great, but you can also make it so the opacity is different. So if you don't want to make it visible at first at all whatsoever, and then you actually make it 100% visible by the end, that is totally up to you. You can start it in fully visible and then just make it 100% visible. So right now, as you can see, it's 100% visible. It's about to do its little rotation thing, it goes and fades away, and then just it comes back, which I haven't done too much, but it is a pretty cool effect. So that's more or less the effects. You can do that with everything. You can do that with face cam, you can do that with the visuals. You can literally do it with anything that you can select that is a visual. So picture, clip of something, COD gameplay, anything. If I want to add a sound effect, I normally just use a MP4 to YouTube online downloader. I'm not going to link anything because I don't want anyone to get any viruses. If there is a virus on this, I don't want to be held accountable for that. So find your own way of getting audio clips offline. I would recommend downloading them though, and not just using what I used to do, is use a microphone, put my microphone up to some sound, and then go, hey, let's make this the audio clip. No. Obviously, if you want to do more in-depth edits, because as you can see right now, this is actually a very small audio file, and there's no way in heck I'm going to actually be able to get down there and edit it. So in order to actually make it bigger without actually increasing the size of the audio clip, I can actually go down to these little, what look like mountains here, and there is a little like bar scaler, and you can actually just move that up, and the further along you go, you normally don't need it as increased as this. The bigger that the file gets, and as you can see here, this massive file is actually not very long at all.
Don't do it.
As you can see there, though, we just added an audio effect over top, and you can just make this louder or quieter depending on what you want the video to fit. And it's honestly, for that kind of stuff, it's personal opinion and just being a reasonable human being and just being like, okay, I want this effect to be louder than my gameplay, but not blow my audience's ears out. That's just all personal opinion and all those kind of things. As you can see here, when you add like a visual or something like that, I'll do it with this. You can press I and then click over to somewhere else, like for in, so where you want to start the video before you even drag it into the file, and you can press O. So say maybe that's where I want to start and end my file. O is for out. And then I can actually, if I zoom out here, it'll make it a lot easier on my life. I can actually drag from here and drag in a file and see how much smaller that is. It's the exact same one that we used at the beginning, except now we just have this file here and this portion of the file and not the entire thing. So if you just want to import a portion of a file that you have, this is the best way to do so, opposed to editing it down and then bringing it into here. This one's a bit more complex, but if you want to add text, I'm just going to do it all in one thing, so we just have a massively edited section of the video, I guess you could say. If you want to add text in a certain area, make sure that wherever you're adding the text, you have cut out. So if I want to add it to this face cam, for example, and I just want it to start when this girl comes in and end when the girl comes out, I gotta make sure I've cut in that certain area. I'll do it with the actual visuals for the gameplay as well, and I'm going to click on whatever video file I want it on. So for this example, I'm actually going to do it on the gameplay, and you want to go over to this little plus sign here with the little squares in the background. I don't know exactly what it's supposed to be, but it says make composite shot, or you can do Control M, which is normally what I like to do, and then it will say Moza gameplay MP4 composite shot, or whatever your file is called, and then composite shot afterwards. Press OK. And then from here, it just comes up with the actual clip. It gets rid of all, like, don't worry, your edits aren't gone. This is a completely different thing. It actually goes from your editor. Your editor is actually right here and goes to the actual composite shot that, you know, I told you to go to. From here, you can do a variety of things, but I haven't tested everything you can exactly do. Like I said, this is just the basics, so if you want to know any more about it, go and look up tutorials. There's tons of tutorials online. This is just my basic of what I use in my videos. So if you want to add text or something like that, there's actually, you can press T, which is what I like doing, or you can actually go and click this little A box here next to the actual file image itself, and then wherever you want to apply the text, you can click on it as if you were about to start a document file or write an essay or something. And this is actually important. You can change it afterwards, so it's not a big deal. I'm going to put it to 1000. And that just makes the text box a bit bigger. 400's a bit smaller, 400 by 400. It's just preference, once again, how big you want the text box to be. But then you click in this, and you actually go to where you were dragging in your files before, importing your files, and you can click over one. There is actually one more over, and it is actually a text box file. And you can edit what type of text you want. So let's say I want to keep it at white, or I want to change it to blue or something like that. You click blue, click OK. And then I want an outline of like red by 6. I click OK. I want a different font. I want that font, and I want the font to actually be really massive, and I want the spacing of the words to be -5, so they're actually really close together. And I'm gonna type the words what. Now, as you can see, it's actually quite hard to see the blue because of how big the red is, so I'll actually make that a bit smaller. And well, actually, you have to highlight it if you're ever gonna edit something like that, and then make it smaller. There you go. So now you can see the blue with the red outline. That's more or less just how you add text, and if you want to re-edit a previous text that you've already done, as you saw there, I just highlighted it, and then you can go back to editing what you want it to do. You can add bold effects, you can capitalize if you really want to. And then once you're done with the composite shot, though, if you want to drag it around and actually readjust where it is and the size and things like that, you can actually go over to controls again. And you can go over to transform and anchor point and all that, and you can actually move text the same way that you would move the photo that I showed you. So if I start here, go like that, and then move it over, it's going to start there and move over as if that's what we were doing. So it's the exact same thing as moving a photo, so I'm not going to go over that again. But just so you know, controls if you want to do something like that. Material, there's a lot of things you can do with the text, which I think is amazing. I'm not going to go over the, like I said, deep details. This is just a basic tutorial, so if you want more on that, there are tutorials out there. If you want to put it in the middle, which sometimes I like doing, so if you go back to the text tool, highlight it, and then just go to paragraph down here, it'll actually make it so it's either this way or that, completely in the middle, off to the left on one side, which is the basic default, or right alignment, which is completely to the right of the box. I like putting it in the middle just to know that it's centered with whatever I'm doing. But once you're done writing your text or whatever you want to write, you can actually click off the composite shot. And if you are very confident that that is where you want to keep it, you know for a fact you're never going to use that composite shot again, you can actually delete that file. But just be warned, once you click that X, there is actually no way to re-edit that. That is a permanent thing there forever. You cannot move it. It will be stuck there in time as if it was part of your file originally. So just make sure that you want that there. Otherwise, I would just keep the composite shot open so that you can edit it whatever time you want. I'd recommend that anyway. I'm just saying if you do click that X, there is no way of going back unless you just completely drag in the raw file. Now I think this is pretty basic, but when you're zoomed in especially, the best way to go about things is not actually dragging your timeline along with your little white marker here, but indeed going down to the little timeline, I don't even know what to call it, the little scroller at the bottom. And you can actually just grab that with your mouse and scroll along way faster. You can just go from end to end like no problem. So if you want to get from one end to the other super quick and not have to zoom out every time, that's probably the best way to do so. Just don't drag your mouse along like that. It is really bad and lags your computer a bunch. There's only a couple more things I want to show you guys before I'm kind of done with the basics. The next thing I want to show you guys is don't worry when the playback quality is really bad. So right now it's actually quite good on the paused quality. I think I have it on max quality because you want to see what it looks like when it's paused. I have it on all the defaults right now, so it's not a big deal. But when I actually go to play, as you can see, it gets all fuzzy and blurry and like what's going on. And I'm glad that the audio and videos are working. That's nice. But you can actually tell that it actually gets quite blurry and the effects aren't always the same. And if I actually go and add an effect, which I'll do next, for audio or what have it, it actually might not play it because of the editor, and it's the editor's way of saving power and saving processing power for your computer, so it actually makes it easier and more optimal to actually edit with this software, and you don't have to have a beast PC. Lucky for me, I have a beast PC, but I'm guaranteeing all of you probably don't that are watching this video. But if you do have an absolutely immaculate PC and you want to watch your videos back the exact same way that they are going to be exported, you can actually go to playback quality. I just have mine on fastest, but you can put yours on final draft, playback resolution, and I have it on quarter, but you can just put it on maximum settings for all of these things, and then it will make it so that all of those things are maxed out. You're going to be seeing the video the way it will be exported, but if you have a slower computer, like I said, this won't work very well, and so for that reason, the only thing that's at good quality is when the video is paused, so that you actually know what you're editing, and for the most part, this works, and you don't really need to see what your edits are. The last thing I really want to show you guys is under the effects tab, and I use a lot of these effects all the time. I've used quite a few of them throughout my videos. There's a ton of effects here if you just want to look up certain things. So for the audio, if I do fade, or visuals actually, if you just type in fade, it comes up with transition audio, so you can do crossfades, so you can fade audio into other audio. So if you want to just make the audio sound really clean and then fade that audio into the other audio, it sounds really good with music and things like that. Or if you just want to fade out the audio or fade in the audio, there is just one strict fade thing, and you can drag it in and out to make the fade longer or shorter. Along with fade to color, let's say I want to fade by the end of this little sequence here, I actually want to fade my face cam out of the image and then just delete my face cam, for example. So let's say I do this, and then I actually fade my face cam out, it fades to black, and then it just disappears off the face of the earth, and it looks a lot cleaner than, sometimes looks a lot cleaner than just if you were to cut straight to something obscurely. Another thing in the effects tab, there's tons of effects just like that, but there's like color correction and things like that. You can do add auto color, and then in order to, it just gives it a different effect to it. And if you ever want to adjust the colors or adjust the effect in a certain way, you can actually click on the drop down arrow here and go down to thresholds and things like that and actually adjust what the photo looks like. And now you can see my face cam looks really distorted and weird, but I'll keep it like that just for the sake of the video. And there's literally tons of stuff. There's tons of like zoom blur. I would put that on the gameplay, for example, and all these things are visual blurs, but now the gameplay is blurry. There are so many effects on HitFilm, I'm not even going to be able to go over all of them. It's literally just something that you're going to have to play around with yourself, and I'm still currently playing with. It's one of those things that probably will just give you endless amount of hours of fun and different effects and different types of experiences. if you enjoy editing like I do. One last thing I've used, and maybe people are wondering how do you do this, is there's a lot of 3D effects. So if you go to Quick 3D, there's more than just these Quick 3Ds, but these are the best ones and best examples. If you want to do like an explosion, for example, I mean, these are really corny, but if you do want to do something like this, you can do that. It makes a new composite shot. Don't worry, just go back to the editor, and you can actually use your little mouse arrow, as long as it's not on the cut, to drag in and out things. So if you want to make something shorter and you don't want to cut it and you just want to drag it from the end, you can do so. As long as this little blue bracket shows up, you can do that. We have our little fire explosion now too. It's this little 3D fire explosion. You can make it bigger and smaller with the same way I showed you how to make the photos bigger and smaller. Just have this in the corner over there or something like that. I don't know. You can just add it in, fade it in, the same things as you can do with all the other stuff. And some of my favorite stuff is the audio effects. You can do like reverse audio, reverse time. You can also do, if you just click the drop down on audio, you can actually do a bunch of like large rooms, echoes, pitches, just by going to shift, and you can like mess around with it, like distort it by pressing the blue, making that little circle blue again. So it's gonna start really, really deep, and then it just gets really, really high pitched in sound. And you can just mess around with the effects. Honestly, I could not show you all of them to save my life. It's honestly, there's tons of them. There's tons of them, trust me. And this is all free. This is a free downloaded thing. This is an amazing, amazing application for your computer. It's great. The last thing I actually want to show you guys is if you want to make something, change the opacity on something. This is like the very last thing I want to show you guys. If you want to change the opacity on something, for example, if I want to make my face cam less opaque, and I don't mean in the way that I did here with all this movement. You can do it in that way too if you so please, but I just mean I want the whole thing to have less opacity. I want to be at 50% opacity, for example. Well, we'll take this as 100% opacity, which would be the gameplay, and I can actually just drag this little line here that's on top of the gameplay, the MP4 file, and drag it down to exactly 50% opacity. Oh, there we go. And then that way, it'll just show, it'll be black wherever there is opacity because I have nothing behind it. So when the video exports, it'll just be black, but it will actually just make that thing. If you want to overlay a video on top of another video, that's exactly what it will look like. But for now, we'll just do back to 100, so it actually looks nice. So in full, this is what it will sound/look like. I mean, it looks pretty cool. I know there is actually more to it, and as you can see, actually, it actually got rid of, when I was playing my file in this editor, it got rid of my effects for the blur, the visual on my face cam, all those things it got rid of. But once you actually export the video, then you don't have to worry about it. Or if you just scroll through it like this, you can see exactly what it's like. And like I said, if you want to see what it looks like in the editor, you can just do the playback quality or playback resolution or all those things right here. So that's basically it for HitFilm. All I have to do now is export the video. So if you just go over here and actually click this little export thing, if you just want to export the file that you were working on, so the cut in and out area that your little white marker is over is the in-out area that you will be exporting. Recommended if you're exporting an entire video, this is not what you want, but if you're just exporting a clip, this is most likely what you would use. But for most of all purposes, you're just going to be doing export contents because it just takes the entire thing. For this will show up. You can either do remember my choice and it won't show up again, which is actually what I'm going to do, and then just go to exporting, or you can click continue working, but I'll just go to exporting every single time I do something like that. And then as you can see here, once you've gone to exporting, it shows up your file. YouTube 1080p HD is what you would have chosen at the beginning when setting up your file and making sure everything's okay. If you want to save it to a specific location and name it something, then this is the best way of doing so, just clicking on that little link there, and it will actually bring up what you want to call it, and that is what the video will be called and where it will be sent to when the video is exported. Then that is what the video will be called, and it will go to my desktop. And if I just click this little play button here that says start exporting, it'll actually start the exporting process. And as you can see here in the preview window, if you actually look over here in the little preview window, it'll actually show you how much of your video has been exported so far. It goes without saying though, with the more highly edited your video is, the longer it will take to export, just because of the amount of edits. It'll also give you an estimated remaining time in the corner here, which is kind of nice, and the amount of time that's actually passed. And it also gives you your start time. That being said though, guys, that was the video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Once your video is exported, you can just upload it to YouTube or upload it to wherever you want to upload it to. Make sure it's the right file and all that kind of jazz, which I'm sure you guys will get the hang of. It's literally just trial and error. It's really hard at first, but this was the absolute basics with the Winja, how to edit on HitFilm. It's really fun and easy to use once you get to actually using it. Like I said though, it's just trial and error, but once you get the hang of it, it's the most fun thing in the world, and I have a blast editing videos for you guys. Once again though, I just want to thank you guys so much for sticking with me through the years. It has been so fun. I started this channel in grade 9, believe it or not, and I've made it all the way to grade 12. My editing has just gotten so better. I started on Windows Movie Maker, and I just want to give people the absolute best chance that they can to start editing on something great so that they can get the hang of it even quicker than I did. Now that you guys are masters at this though, I'm gonna see you guys in the next video. It'll probably be a Black Ops 4 video. I'm just looking forward to literally everything that I'm doing. Thanks once again. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace off, my dudes.